fascinating to me. I had obviously no idea really about this story. So what inspired you, or how did this come across your desk, and how did you find this? What inspired you to do this?
I read about the story of the crime in a magazine, and I thought that it was sort of a kind of a stranger than fiction story. The more I read about it, the more bizarre it became. Very unusual group of criminals. You know, they were well educated, they were from good families, they had lots of opportunities. I was kind of immediately intrigued to understand the why of it. At the time I heard about the story, the guys, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but hopefully not too much, but they were in prison and for quite a long time. I began writing to them just with that objective of trying to understand, you know, more of what the motivation was. And it was the letters that came back from them and the honesty where they talked about some of the reasons they had for doing it. It wasn't all about the money. I think for one of them or two of them it was. That was the thing that made me think, well, this is more than just a great story. This is really a story of our time. This is a story about young men who are rather lost, looking for this so-called special life that they're promised, and that looking for an identity, basically.
Now, I got to ask you, because Warren is such a fascinating individual, do you believe his story with everything that happened? Because it seems like the guys are just like, well, we don't know.
I mean, I think it's one of the things that, as an audience, you know, you're encouraged to question. I don't have more information than you do after you've seen the film. I think, you know, Warren, he's kind of a fantasist. You know, he wanted to create a movie for them all to live in. Right. You know, they wanted to live in a movie rather than reality, and that's, you know, and the great irony is now there is a movie about the story. But there was a sense that the guys, I thought that they probably never thought they were actually going to go through with it. Yeah. That they were going to get as far as they could, look over the precipice, and then go, well, I'm not jumping because that would be disastrous. And they did. And I think Warren, probably more than any of them, needed to know what was on the other side of that line that you should never cross.
Now, the way that you did this film was extremely creative to me. When did you get that idea to take it in that direction? Was it in pre-production when you were like, you know, I'm going to do kind of this documentary style thing and also a feature, like merging those worlds?
You know, my background is in docs. There's something about watching a documentary in the cinema which is a really like a visceral experience for an audience. You know, if someone pulls out a gun in a documentary or there's blood on the floor, that is like heart-stopping stuff, right? Right. You know, you're like, people get shot in the face every 5 minutes in the movies, and we don't really bat an eyelid, do we? I wanted to try and bring those two things together. So you're watching this, but because you know that it's true and it hasn't been wildly exaggerated, it hasn't been fictionalized, you're constantly like remembering that this is happening in the same world that you and I live and breathe in. And so because of that, your engagement and your investment in the story is heightened. You're like in it. You know, you are feeling what it might feel like to attempt a robbery like this.
You know, Chaz is also another interesting character because it seems like he has the most to lose. So talk to me about when you spoke to him, like what sense you got from him.
Well, Chaz is he's more of a sort of the straight guy in a way. You know, he's very ambitious, he's incredibly professional. You know, his attitude was, if we're going to do this, it's got to be done right. Right. He's not looking for an existential experience to try and understand what life might be like if you suddenly kind of throw it all up in the air and see where the pieces land. He, I think, just wanted he wanted a head start. He wasn't rejecting the life that they were rejecting. In fact, I think he quite liked it. You know, that suburban life in Kentucky. And he realized that he got involved with a group of people who probably didn't have the same interests and weren't motivated by the same things and weren't as professional. And because of that, he ends up involved in something that he is sort of spiraling out of his control and watching his future potentially being flushed down the toilet.